So far we have understood what an SQL is and what a database is. To just a quick recap, a database is something which stores the data. So you have a database which is hosted in some server. So let's say this is our database. Now this database has all the data that we need, right? So we store all this data here. And now in order to connect to the database, we need a user ID and we need a password. So we provide the user, we provide the password, and then we will be able to connect to this database. Now you need to retrieve some information from this database, or you need to add some information to this database, right? So we use something called as SQL to connect and retrieve the data to this data. Basically, a set of instructions to retrieve the data or to add or update the data to the database. So this is a quick recap of what database is and what SQL is. Now, now it comes is like how do we actually start working with the database? So what happens is in older days, like when I started, what we used to do is we used to have a database. We used to install some database some in in some remote location. And for practice, we would basically install this database in our local system. So we would basically we basically download the database software and we will install it in our local system. And then we have something called as a client. So and again, a tool like SQL Developer or Toad, we download, we install it, and then we create a user and we connect to the database. Now, what happens is today, many companies actually do not use this structure because everything is on cloud, right? Or most of the things are on cloud. So instead of installing anything, what we do is we basically connect to the database environment via web page. Okay, so online. So we will do something like that for our learning purpose. We use something called as Oracle Live SQL, where we will connect to the database. We don't have to install the database. Oracle will provide us the database, and then we can use this database. All right. Okay. Now, before jumping into that, there are a few things that we need to understand, right? So let's understand them step by step. So first thing is database. So we have a database, right? This we've said that we store the information, whatever information is required. All the information will be stored in the database. So now within this database, we have something called a schema. All right. So schema will logically categorize or logically arrange the data. So think of something like this. Like for example, you have a laptop, right? So your laptop, you can consider your laptop is a database where you store a lot of things, and then you have something called as folders, right? So folders, like for example, if you want to store all the movies, you could create a folder and will store all the movies. And you might create another folder for your studies, right? All the important documents you might want to place in that folder. So what we are doing is we are categorizing this information. So similarly, in companies, we have a database, and then within the database, we have schema which will categorize the information. Like all the sales related data will be under sales schema, all the employee related information will be in the employee schema, something like that, right? And then from schema, you will actually create the tables. All right. So this is what happens. Now the next question is who creates this all these things? So a database is basically created by a DBA, database administrator. As the developer, we will not be creating any database. In most scenario, we'll also not be creating a schema. So a database and schema will be created by the DBAs. Tables is something that we'll create in lower environment, that is development. But again, in higher environment of production, you'll have the DBA do all this stuff, right, for us. Okay, so okay, let me also go a little bit deeper first if anybody is like new or fresher, right? So now what happens is, let's say you joined a company, right? So you joined a company. Now what happens, there is somebody called as DBA, database administrator, who is the owner of the database. So he would create the database. So he might create as many databases, like let's say there are database 1, there's database 2, database 3. So a company can have as many databases, right? So different projects may use different database. Now when you enter, what happens is a request is created for the database administrator. So what he will do, let's say a user. So your name is A. Now you will be given a user ID and password, right? And you will be given permissions. So you will not be given all the permissions. You will be given permissions for the required database. So what they'll do, like, okay, you would need to work on database one. So they will give you permission for database one. Now, again, within the database, right, you might have different schemas. So they may not give you access to all schemas. They may not give you access to all the tables. So there are very specific permissions that are required, and only those permissions will be given to you. Now, there's one more thing called as roles. So what happens is there is another user P, right, who is also a developer like you. So this person will also need similar roles, right, or similar permissions. So instead of giving the same permissions everywhere, what they do is they will create roles. So let's say they create a developer role. So this developer role might have access to certain databases or might have access to certain tables, some read write access and all this. So anybody who is a developer will be given access, will be added to this role. So internally, because this role has access to these permissions, now that person will get all the required access of that, right? So this is how it happens. This is how things happen in a real world. So you get a user ID, and then the database administrator or DBA will assign you role, and you will have permissions to those roles, or the roles will have permissions to certain objects like the schemas and all this. You as a developer will never create a database. All right. Okay. Now this is good, right? So another thing, right? So I said, like, they have multiple databases, right? So you might have multiple databases. So now let's say your project is working on one database called as DB1. Okay. Now this database, what they have is, we will have different environments. So when you start working, so there is an environment called a dev. So this is where you write all the code, right? And then once you may all write all the code, you push this code to QA, UAT. So these are different environments and production. Now in every environment you need a database. So you cannot have the same database everywhere, because let's say if somebody has a dev access, right, if you are writing something into the database, it should not directly go into production. So at every environment you will have a different databases. So let's call this db1 dev, right? So in QA you might have db QA. This is the database name. In UAT, you might have DB UAT. In production, you might have DB Pro, right? So different databases in different environments. So within this databases, you will have schema. So in most cases, and this should be in all cases, is that under the database, all the schemas will be same in different environments. So because this is the same database, but in different environments, right? So you might have a schema, let's say sales. The same schema will be there here, here, and here, right? So now when you're querying, right? So let's say there is a table called as, again, we'll talk about what table is, what schema is again in detail. Don't worry at this time. Now here, let's say you have a table called as employee, right? So you have a table employee, you have a table employee. Now in all the environment, you have a schema called as sales. Within the schema, you have a table called as employee. Now, if you want to refer to a table, right? EMP, let's say you want to refer to a EMP. So which table is it referring to? Is it referring to a table in dev? Is it referring to a table in QA? Is it referring to a table in UAT, or is it referring to a table in EMP, right? So so typically when we refer with database dot the schema dot the table. So in this case, so let's say if I'm referring to a production database employee ID. So I would say db prod dot schema. The schema is sales dot table name. Table name is EMP. So whatever queries you are writing, you would basically go db dot schema dot table name. Now, because we are practicing using an Oracle database, we are not creating an Oracle DB here. So we will not be able to create this database or schema. So we will have an individual database, individual schema. So you need to kind of register in Oracle. I'll show you the steps. So what I'm saying is this database, this schema will be different for each of us. So in all my lectures, I'm going to refer to the table directly here. But internally, you should understand this is database dot schema dot emp. All right. Okay. So I hope this is clear till now. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go and I'm gonna show you something here. So let's go here. So I am here in Google. So Oracle Live SQL or Oracle SQL Live. So if you Google it with Oracle Live SQL, you will see the top freesql.com. So this is provided by the SQL. So we don't have to download and install any software. So you can use this. The database is provided by the Oracle. You can use the Oracle database. You'll not be able to create the database, but that is still fine, right? So when you click on this, you will have something like this. Okay. Now here you will see like you need a sign in option. So when you click on the sign in option, it will get you here, right? So the first thing is you need to create an account. So if you click on this, you would be required to create an account. So you need to provide certain details like your email address. Now this can be your personal email address, your Gmail, whatever domain you are using. You need to provide a password, the country code, and a little bit all the details here. So, and then when you click on create, so you will have a user ID, which is your email, the password, which whatever password that you have given, and then you can go here and kind of give a user ID here. So let's say I'm giving some user ID, and the next thing is that you will be asked to give a password. All right. Okay, this session has expired, but that is fine. So now I have logged in here. I have already logged in. You can see it is signed out. So this is how the interface will be. All right. So these Oracle provides you a database. So these are the different versions of database you can see here. So let's select the 19C. Yeah, let's select the 19C. So here you can see that there are different schemas that the database, Oracle database has already provided here. All right. Uh, this is a table that I've created. I think this is was deleted as well. It's not deleted. Okay. Anyway, that is fine. So now let me just close this. This is not required. This is some documentation. So this is where you can actually write your programs. Okay. So you can write your programs here. The result of the programs means, I'm sorry, the you can write your queries here and then the result will be right here. All right. Okay. Now, what we will do is the first thing what we will do is we understand that we cannot create a database right here. So we will not be able to create any database. Now, instead of creating a database, so what we will do is like we will see what is existing database that the Oracle is providing. Like I have logged into this session, right? So obviously there is a database that is allocated to me. So we'll see what is the database. Okay, before that, I need to tell you something very important. So, this session, when you log off, right, when you sign out, whatever data that you are saying will be lost. So, we need to ensure that we need we need to ensure that we commit all the changes. And again, we'll talk about all of this. So please pay attention to whatever I'm doing here so that you will not lose any of the data once you log off. Okay. So here we have something called as a worksheet. So this is basically SQL files. So whatever commands if you are using, if you want to go back and check, you can save those commands. All right. So the first thing that we will do is like we want to understand what is the so what is the current database that we have, right? So we for that we have something like this. So we can use this command. So six contest user environment database name. So now select this. This is a run button. So if you click on this, it will run. It will give you the output. So if you roll this up, so this is the database name that we have. All right. So let me just copy this. Okay, think I'm not able to copy it. That is fine. I have this here. That is okay. So this is a database, right? So let me just type it live SQ. You can actually download the script output here. If you click on this, it will download it into your text. I mean, you can download it into a TXT file, but that is fine. This is small, right? So this is SQL schema 19.6, the version PDB01. All right. So this is how you can find. Okay. Now, similarly, if you want to know the current schema, there is another command that you can use. So, and again, this database will be different, maybe different for each of us. All right. So this schema, right? So you need to select this and run. So this schema again will be different for each of us. Okay, your schema might be different than my schema, right? Okay, so this is the database. This is a schema that we have. So now let's let's do something, right? So let's try to create a database. So now we'll not be able to create a database because Oracle does not allow, we do not have the permissions, right? But I just wanted to show you how to create a database so that, I mean, as a developer, you will not be creating a database. So this is just for your understanding. So we use a command called as create, then we say database. So we want to create a database and then you give a database name. So let's say I'm giving a database name called as Amazon DB, right? So this is how you create a database. When you execute it, it will create a database. But here we are not able to create a database because this is the online version, right? And we already have a database which is mounted to us, so we don't have the permissions. Now, if I want to create a schema, so instead of what I can do is I can say create schema. Okay, let me write it here. Create database name, create schema. I can say create schema Amazon's. Yeah. So this is how I can, again, we do not have permissions, so I can just execute it and we do not have a permissions. All right. So now what I'll do is like I will create a table, a quick table. Don't worry if you do not understand this right now. My intention is not for you to teach a table in this session. My intention is to show you the environment. Okay. So all these things again, the database creation schema will be taken care by the DBA. All right. So I'll create a table. So I'll create a table called as employee with just one column. Again, we will talk about tables in details. You don't have to worry about anything. Just understand this is more of a theoretical topic as of now. Okay, so I can create this table, right? So you can see this table is created. Now, if I have to refer to this table, right? So what I can do is I can do, this is a select statement. So select star from EMP. So what it means is like I am going to retrieve all the data in this EMP. Right now, we do not have any data. So this should just not produce any result. But again, my intentions, no items to this. My intention is not to teach the queries here in this session. This is more of a theoretical. This is just for your understanding. So you will understand like why I'm doing all these things. Now I said select star from EMP, right? So just a few minutes back, I talked about one thing, right? If this EMP is in a database, in different database, and if you have a different schema, how do you refer? So now what you have to do is like, for example, this is our database name, right? So what we will do is instead of select star from BMP, so we would say select star from database, which is Amazon DB dot, then we will say Amazon S dot emp, right? So this is database name dot schema name dot emp. Now, because the database and schema is already created for us and will not be able to create, so we will be using this one. But just remember that whenever you are referring to a table or an object, it is internally referring to the current schema and current database. So in our case, whatever the output of this is your current database and this is a current schema, right? Okay, so this is what I wanted you to understand. So just to recap quickly, I'll summarize this. So you have a database. Again, you need a permissions. You will be, the database administrator will create a user for you. They will create a role. The user will have certain permissions, right? If you are a developer, you will have permissions to create tables, you have permissions to write into the database, you permissions to read the database. In lower environment, that is dev. Now in higher environments, those permissions will be different. So every if you want to log into a database, you need a permission. If you want to create a table, you need to permission. All these things are taken care by the database admission. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about any of these things. So when you join a company, they will give you a user ID and password. So in most cases, you will basically log in through the SSO. So you will be logged in. Now, once you log in, you are given access to certain databases. So you might create tables, you might refer to certain objects in the database. So you will follow this standard where you will say database name dot schema name dot object, whether it's a table name or it's a view. But because we do not have the privilege to creating this database here, so we are directly calling the table name, the object, right? So this is all it. This is what I wanted to teach in this. I hope this makes clear. Going forward, we will be basically creating the tables. We will be querying the database. We'll write all sort of bunch of queries. All right. Okay. And one last thing, right? So this sheet basically, right, whatever commands that you have, so you can actually save this. So I can go and say, see, I can give it as a name. So let's say this is, I'll give it a number. Oracle DB basics. So now you can save it to the database. So when you save it to the database, basically it gets saved here uh, in the online, or you can save it to a device, which is your laptop. So I'm gonna click on save to a database. So this is very important. So that whatever commands that you have, you don't lose track of this. And you can check here under files. You will see this is a database and this is a file that we have just created, right? So ensure that you save your work so that whenever you want to this refer back, you can refer here, and it will also act like a notes for you so that you can go back and kind of refresh things. All right, so this is what I wanted to cover in this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in my next class.